Government has no idea how many people are dying in jails and prisons. That's the word from a recent report that estimated the government count was off by at least 1,000 deaths in 1 year alone. That's even with a law that requires them to collect this data.
But our I-team found something else. When your Meredith Anderson went digging, she uncovered where an inmate dies makes a big difference when it comes to legal action.
How much is a life worth? Can you put a price tag on your sibling, your parent, or even your child? Of course not. They are priceless. Their lives are priceless. But tonight, an all-new I-team investigation shows state governments can and do put price tags on people, and it's coming out of your wallet. You never know the value of a moment until it becomes a memory.
I miss him so much.
It's been 3 years since Beverly Pills got the call from Trenton Correctional. Jeremy Kelly was only 44 years old. The grief, unbearable, because the father of two said he was finally done with drugs. This last arrest, he said, was his last arrest.
I can't live this life. I have to change. He was so set to do it right this time.
He's been born to you. He is the Messiah,
Jeremy
the Lord.
ran out of time.
This will be a sign.
July 20th, 2021. Surveillance video in his dorm shows he fell out of bed, and when he needed help, the corrections officer in charge left him on the floor to die. Officer Shamir Hardin never rendered aid. She never called 911. Instead, she went back to her office and turned off the light, possibly to take a nap. We found she's been suspended for sleeping on the job twice before. But Jeremy's mom and sister did not know any of this back then. All they knew, something did not seem right, and they wanted answers.
You had to sue civilly.
Right.
Do you think something criminal happened?
Yes. Possibly. We may never know.
Right.
I mean,
But yes, we do.
The day Jeremy died, Officer Hardin told SLED agents he was still breathing when she went back into the office. But in a second interview, she said she didn't know if he was breathing or not. She told SLED agents she was about to bother him, but an unknown inmate told her not to. She said she thought he might have been drunk and passed out, but never notified any staff. Toxicology reports showed no drugs in Jeremy's system, but there was alcohol. He had a .122. The legal driving limit in South Carolina is .08. So he was too drunk to drive, but wasn't at a level considered life-threatening or even when most people get sick. Still, he shouldn't have had access to it at all. But SLED doesn't appear to ask any questions about how or where he got alcohol. Their focus seems to stay on Officer Hardin, who also admits she didn't see Jeremy later that night when she was supposed to count inmates because it was dark. Ultimately, she admitted her failure to act resulted in Jeremy's death.
Once he dropped, it was pure neglect from there on out. Pure neglect.
Agents took this information to 11th Circuit Assistant Solicitor Doug Fender, who advised against criminal charges based on lack of probable cause. He said this didn't count as misconduct in office because she didn't gain anything from failing to act. SLED closed the case, citing Jeremy's cause of death as natural. Officer Hardin was not fired or even disciplined at work. Government employees once had total immunity. But in 1986, South Carolina's Tort Claims Act gave families another way to hold someone accountable.
Here's where that price tag on your loved one comes in. South Carolina caps tort payouts. In Jeremy's case, $600,000. Through public records, we found the family settled for just under that.
the money wasn't the win, the amount. We got no money. I mean, it goes to his kids. The win for me was seeing the Max and hurting them, and I wanted it to be reported out there. I wanted to go to court so it would bring attention.
The I-Team examined tort cases involving South Carolina's Department of Corrections for cases over the last 4 years when correction employees failed, sometimes with deadly consequences. And case by case, line by line, we built a database and a bottom line. Almost 30 $4 million. $21 million paid out to families. $13 million in legal fees. All paid by you, the taxpayer.
The whole story from start to finish is just a sad, sad story of nobody caring.
It's also a story that's bigger than Jeremy Kelly, one that's happening again and again in other jails and prisons.
South Carolina isn't alone in this lawsuit, cap. At least 31 other states have one, including Georgia. In Georgia, that cap is $1 million. But in places like California and Arkansas, there is no cap.
And your I-team spent a few months compiling that database and includes hundreds of cases where taxpayers paid families for things like civil rights violations and cruel and unusual punishment.